Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 19th day. Wow, we're really knocking up on Christmas now of December here. Got a great show with you planned for tonight. I'm going to talk about last night's game. Did Seattle win it, or did simply the Eagles lose it? Looks like the Eagles are having more and more internal problems than we first thought that they may have. It's starting to leak out through the media, so I'll talk about that issue. Also, Bills. I've seen this before. With the Buffalo Bills team. Their recent failures and setbacks have hardened this team, and I'll give you a few potential examples of how other teams in the past have played like the Bills, been favorites, underachieved, came back and won as major underdogs. Not guaranteeing that's going to happen here, but it looks like they possibly may be on that path. Plus, I'll give you my NFL Power 5. Good scope, bad scope, where I was right, where I was wrong. Let's first go ahead and get our first and only break out of the way, and I'll be back here in 49 seconds, and we'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then, let's jump right into last night's game. I think that's pretty interesting. Listen, I knew that Eagles somewhat had their hands full with Seattle, banged up secondary, 2 picks there by the flu-driven Hurts. Jalen Hurts, who had to fly separately. He had to fly separately with the team. Mind you, that some of the Cowboy players had flu-like symptoms as well. It's that time of year. I think that may have affected both teams. Nobody's really talking about that, but I'm putting that together. Remember, Philadelphia and Dallas played last week. Flu bug may have been going through those 2 locker rooms. And listen, the Eagles, I just made some notes here before I get in my rant here. Up by 10, should have never blown that lead. For all that being said, they got the former Patriots defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia. Now he is on the sideline. So they're starting to make adjustments to their defense as things go along. Aikman, like I've seen, says Jalen Hurts, very even keel, even through good times and bad. But all that being said, it looks like A.J. Brown's issues are growing. I saw him trending for the wrong reason last night. He shoved a defensive back on the sideline, Michael Jackson, for Seattle there. And I saw a clip where he wasn't blocking downfield for Hurts on the last drive when Hurts was rushing there. Last week, he was publicly criticizing the scheme on offense. This is all A.J. Brown. Carlos, that's funny. I never hear from you when I'm winning on Saturday. That's funny how you don't never really watch the 2 games, but games that you pick that you be winning, all of a sudden I kind of hear from you, because I noticed that we had a huge game against the 49ers and Eagles, where the 49ers are beating the crap out of them second half. I don't know, maybe he was out with the family that night. Maybe it's just coincidence. But anyways, so you look at this, and going back to A.J. Brown, he's publicly criticizing the scheme on offense last year. If you guys remember, he was upset because he didn't get the ball in a blowout win against the Giants, So it's you're starting to see, and this is what I was talking about coming into the season about the Eagles. Very talented team. That is exactly how I would have built this team. Offensive line, defensive line. If you're missing on players, go ahead and trade for a player. What Howie Roseman's done, he's traded for A.J. Brown. A few years ago, he traded for Darius Slay. He used to be a Detroit Lion. So they're put together. The architect of this team is almost as perfect as you can be, other than Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he was going to work out, but he has grown into to be an MVP level of a player here, But listen, this A.J. Brown thing, I've said it about Stephon Diggs. They've got to, that thing is quieting down a little bit with Stephon with the Bills, because they're starting to play better. And I thought, they seem to have a little bit of momentum going. I'll talk about them in a little bit. But when things go bad, these receivers, they insinuate, they enhance. They're like lighter fluid on a fire. You see what I'm saying? But going back to what I was originally saying here, both new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. We go back here last week, what Nick Bosa said about keeping Jalen Hurts in the pocket and not making his runs there. Now, of course, he did run for a couple of touchdowns here, but you're shortening his lanes. There's no these are other observations too about their offense. There is no motion in their offense. There is no jet sweeps in their offense. They just line up and run. They're getting figured out. And quite frankly, this morning when I woke up at about 4:00 in the morning and started writing my notes, because I didn't see all the first half. What I did is recorded it, or all the second half. I recorded it and watched it. But Brian Johnson was trending here. Brian Johnson was trending here. That's the offensive coordinator as far as Brian Johnson. Okay. So they've already made adjustments and gave the power to Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator, who just brought in as an analyst this past year. Okay. Remember, their defensive coordinator is a head coach of Arizona. Their offensive coordinator, Steichen, is having a pretty good year. He's in the playoff hunt there with the Indianapolis Colts with the backup quarterback here. So you've got a very young head coach. Nick Sirianni's not even 45 years old. And now he's having to deal with what your Belichick's, your Nick Sabans of the world early in his career, very young guy himself, having to replace both coordinators, okay? Being a young guy himself, Dallas Goedert just coming back, still one of the more talented rosters, maybe still player for player, the best roster in the league, even with their injuries. But coaching is going to be a real issue. A.J. Brown is going to be an issue. I said it to the Philly sports guy. I said this to a Philly sports guy about A.J. Brown. He's already publicly criticizing before this game about the offensive motion. They said we're predictable, running the same routes. And I'm telling you, this is early. You said, well, you're really panicking. Hey, listen, I'm not the one trending, I'm not the one shoving a defensive back on the sideline. All right. I'm not the one not finishing out blocks. I don't play football, but I'm not the one not finishing out blocks that's getting caught. Now, he did all this stuff at Tennessee. He did. I'm out of Nashville. I watched a lot of Titans games. He delivered for the Titans. He played his butt off. But I'm just telling you, folks, he's starting to get some of these tendencies, And I'm about to bring up a name that a lot of the Philadelphia fans do not want to hear. This is very similar. Think about this for a second. This is very similar to the Terrell Owens situation, okay? Owens was not originally a Philadelphia Eagle. Remember, he was a 49er back in 2004, I want to say. Donovan McNabb, very similar to Jalen Hurts. Very similar to Jalen Hurts, about the same height and stature, really. Hurts is a little quicker than he is. But, both somewhat quiet guys, brought him in. Both look great early, right? All the accolades, both look great early. Owens complaining about a new contract, not getting the ball enough. That starts to bleed over. You're starting to see Owens follow. Some of you old fans know about this. Follow around Donovan McNabb on the sideline. The camera picks it up. They try to play it off. Things continue to mount. It blows over. Finally, Terrell Owens gets into a fight with defensive tackle Hugh Douglas in the locker room, and then eventually he's kicked off the team. I don't know if it'll get that bad, but it seems like it's going in that direction, with A.J. Brown. So, I tell you what, it looks like the 2.0. It really does. And that was 20 years ago. It was back in 2005 here. So I don't think that Seattle won that game. I think that Philadelphia lost that game. They've got to get back to running the ball. You say, well, they did run the ball. Well, they're still running the ball out of shotgun. You've got the best offensive line in football. They are like 27 out of 34. I thought they were better than that. But they're 27 out of 34 on the tush push, where the little rugby scrum there. And that's because Jason Kels, I know he's had a few false starts lately, but Jason Kels, the brother there, is a Hall of Fame center. He is still blasting people off the line of scrimmage here, And I know that Hurts was playing with the flu. You could see it in his eyes. Very sick, very lightheaded, gutted it out anyways. But you can't blow a 10-point lead. Say this out loud. You can't blow a 10-point lead to Drew Lock and a team without Devin Singletary, So this one's going to haunt Seattle, or this is going to haunt Philadelphia for a long time, on both sides of the ball. A little bit better defensively, but still not really where they need to be with Jalen Carter, Douglas, Hassan Reddick. I mean, these guys got player. I mean, where's Nolan Smith at? I mean, all these high draft picks here, And I like what Hurts said. Hey, look, we're just not playing well enough. We're not committed. And I think he's talking about both sides of the ball. And I think he's taking a pot shot at A.J. Brown, who did not finish off his block, So I do think that if I'm Sirianni, for one thing, I have that talk with Brown. For another thing, they're probably going to have to make some staff changes here. And like I said, I don't know if you fire the offensive coordinator, but I don't know if it's going to be the offensive line coach, if it's going to be the wide receiver coach. Remember, the defensive back coach was fired by the Lions last year. They kept Aaron Glenn, and the Lions fixed their issues on defense, got a lot better, ended up knocking Green Bay out of the playoffs last year, and now they're leading their division, coming off of another big win this particular week. So that's something Sirianni is going to have to look and address to. He is going to have to address. There's too much talent on this team. And quite frankly, they could still win out. They've got the Giants twice and the Arizona Cardinals, but this thing could turn into an avalanche if Sirianni doesn't nip it in the bud right now. I think Hurts will be better, but I think they're going to have to get back to doing power football, doing more jet sweeps. They're going to have to do they've got Quells, Watkins, Devontae Smith. Have these guys run behind the line of scrimmage here, because this is one they're going to think about a while. I wouldn't have blamed them if they were lost to Buffalo. Dallas is really matched up really well with them in time. San Francisco, we all kind of knew, for those of us who are not biased in any way, shape, form, or fashion, that they probably matched up really well and would be able to move the ball. They're 27th and 28th against the pass So they're having problems on both sides, and they're just not living up to their talent level. I don't think they're overrated, considering the fact that they're mowing down people last year, even though this year's schedule is much lighter. But I do have a funny soundbite on a light note from a gentleman I've had on the program, Philly sports fan. By the way, Seattle has Pete Carroll's never lost to the Eagles up there. So I don't know what he's doing to the Eagles. He's never lost to the Eagles. Listen to the Philly sports guy who made the trip from Philadelphia all the way to Seattle before the game. Listen up. Jamie Pags, who I've had on the program many a times, a great guest.
What's up, everybody? It's game day, and this is where I'm at today. That's right. We're here in Seattle, where all trends are meant to be broken. That's right. We ain't won here in 15 years, but we're going to take care of business today. And I hear Seahawk tastes just like chicken. Ah, that's right, baby. Go Birds! Yeah!
So that was before the game, and this was after the game. Listen up.
Not the ending I wanted. Not the ending I wanted. This is a tough one. Tough pill to swallow. Congratulations to the Chiefs.
Actually, that was from the Chiefs. Let me hear it one more time. You know what? One more. What playing pretty for Philadelphia here. One more time, please. This is after the loss to Seattle. If I could.
Not the ending I wanted. Not the ending
I wanted. Okay. So listen, they have their hands full. Some tough decisions to make. I do not think I'm overreacting. I do not think they're overreacting. But I do know this. Management and ownership, the difference between Philadelphia and these other garbage teams out there that will remain garbage forever, they will get this right. They will get this right ahead of time. So, anyways, Pickle says, great Philly. That kicker was ready for the winning kick. Eagles could have won the game on that field goal. Yeah, they should have. And it should have never made it close, you know? They should have never made it, but they didn't. That they got beat, and it is what it is. So, again, not sure if I want to fire Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator there, but it does need a makeover. It needs it. There's too much talent on this team, you know? All righty then. Okay, let's go to the next big game here. Okay, let's talk Dallas. Okay, now Dallas after the Philadelphia game, you hear all the right stuff come out of Dak Prescott. You hear all the who was the other the defensive end there, Micah Parsons, saying the right things, head coach in there. And the truth of the matter is that they are that game meant a lot more than they let on. The Eagles win. You know, they talked this big game, this and that, and you can see early on both sides of the ball. Now, they did have one of their best run stoppers, this defensive tackle there, was out of that game before it started. But you can look and see that they were flat as a board. They were flat as a board in that game, and you never really saw them pick up anything from offense, defense. You've seen Dak. Nobody's getting open. Zach Martin gets hurt in the middle of that game. I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Plus, you got to look at the fact that Dallas has not played that well on the road. You know, that you could just tell. Now, I think they'll bounce back this week. Looks like they're going to get some players back. But you'll have to monitor it because they got to play Miami. But listen, they gave up 266 yards rushing to James Cook. Dallas, Jonathan Hankins is who I was trying to think of earlier. Their best run defender was out. Dak Prescott, no touchdowns, 1 interception, making Cam Newton's take as a game manager look legit. His MVP talk just got silenced for a week. Buffalo's small run reminds me of a battle-tested teams who were blew out in years past, folks, and they made a run when we least expected, okay? And what I'm talking about is, let's go back about 20 years, all right? Let's go back about 20 years to the Steelers in 2004, 2005, all right? Ben Roethlisberger for this Steelers team takes up, man, they got Jerome Bettis, they got Palomar, they've got Harrison, I don't know, maybe not Harrison. Well, maybe Harrison. Joey Porter's on that team. You name it. I mean, just stacked. Farrier from defense to offense. Just a really good. Alan Faneca, I want to say he ended up making the Hall of Fame on the offensive line there. Very tough physical team. Lost early in the season. Roethlisberger comes in. They go 15-1. They beat the Patriots in the regular season. Dick LeBeau had that defense playing well. And no rookie quarterback had ever led his team to the Super Bowl. Okay? And sure enough, AFC Championship game, they play a red-hot Patriot team. And they get another look at the Steelers. And Brady cuts through that defense like a hot knife through butter. That's what he does. He cuts through that defense like a hot knife through butter. And the Steelers go on to lose. They're going to lose that year. And, so we come into the next season. There's all this hype here. We come into the next season. Did not get off to the start that they had prior to it. That Steeler team, just a side note, they were led by a guy named, I think it was Maddox. I can't remember his name, but it makes never mind. But they got to the playoffs here. They got to playoffs in the years prior to 04, and they got Ben Roethlisberger, this guy. Nobody can pronounce his name right. He comes from Miami, Ohio. Again, then they go to 15-1. The next year, they're barely making it to the playoffs. The Bengals are really good, led by Carson Palmer that year. The Colts are the best team in football. They're blowing teams out of the water here that particular year. Adrian James, Marvin Harrison's son's going to be a great draft pick here. So you're looking at all this, and you're thinking, oh, maybe Steelers, maybe the year was last year. We know that the bust, Jerome Bettis, he's coming up on retirement. I didn't even I remember watching the playoffs that year, and I didn't even think about the Steelers. I thought, yeah, the Steelers are kind of, they're good in the regular season. Not enough dynamic on the offense, even though I knew that it had Plexico and everybody. And sure enough, they get in. They're like one of the last wild card teams in, and that Steeler team went on the road. Now, Bengal fans do not want to hear this. I go to church with a Bengal fan. He talked about that year for 20 minutes a couple of weeks ago. So that playoff, Carson Palmer, who was it? TJ Hushmanzada, Chad Johnson. The Steelers knock out. They go down the field, score early. Steelers knock this guy out in the first quarter. Knocked him out in the first quarter. Go on a roll. Win that game. Tough physical game. Win that game, right? Then they go on the road. That same team goes on the road. Nobody's picking them to play the Colts. The Colts had snapped home field advantage way beforehand. They 2 and 3 weeks before. That's how good that Colts team was. They were 14-2, but really they could have been 16-0 easy that year, just destroying teams. That Colts team. That was one of the best Colts team, if not the best regular season Colts team out there. Good on offense, defense, And, I blame Tony Dungy for not playing his starters enough. They came in there flat. Everybody thought that the Colts, the first couple of drives, lining up to stop the run, and it's pass, touchdown. Long story short, that game, the Steelers beat them. Mike Vanderjagt, I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago, misses that long field goal, right? He misses that long field goal. So now we're saying, okay, there's no way they're going to go to Denver and beat them. They've already beat a couple of teams on the road, one of them being the 1 seed. They're not going to beat the 2 seed Denver Broncos. It's not going to happen. They're not going to go to Mile High and beat them. And sure enough, they did. Went to Mile High, and then this wild card team, like a 6 seed, I want to say, goes on and beats the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl. And they were outplayed early in that game. That was when Mike Holmgren was complaining about the flags and stuff. But that team had his battle wounds before Roethlisberger. Tommy Maddox, yeah. That's the quarterback. They had been playing well. They had made it to the playoffs a few years, and then they finally get over the hump. And I just mentioned that Colts team. It took years before Peyton Manning could actually win a playoff game, if you guys recall. Then they finally get a really good season here. They finally get home field. Then they get beat that year, that 05-06 team, right? That 05-06 team. But then they start to lose players. They were upset. Vanderjagt made some comments, and Peyton Manning's like, listen, that idiot quarterback gets liquored up and say we're not serious about winning. So they got rid of the guy. They got rid of Vanderjagt, got Adam Vinatieri. So they go out and get Adam Vinatieri. I'm writing off the Colts as choke artist. I done seen enough of the Colts. Manning drafted in 98. 98, they were terrible, but 99 gets the playoffs. Titans put them out in their playoff game. They early 2001, they get humiliated. They get humiliated by the Patriots. We've seen Peyton Manning getting all huffy and puffy here. And this team, not as good in 06 and 07. But I made some notes here. They got a guy named Edgerrin James. They lose him in free agency, right? Then they get this rookie named Joseph Addai. They get this guy named out of LSU, and they've got this safety here. They've always had problems stopping a run. So they get this safety, Bob Sanders, really helps them out with a run. Everybody, including myself, wrote that team off. Peyton will never win anything. He's a choke artist. Because, I've been following the guy since he was in Tennessee, choked against Florida, blah, blah, blah. Well, they got down at home that year, 2006, with this rookie running back, 21 points at home, But they had been hardened and humiliated for year after year after year leading up to that. And I stopped watching that game. I was at work. I got off work. Went up with my sisters. There was a real popular show called Desperate Housewives back in them days. And, chilling at my sister's house. Then the news comes on, and I find out that they came back and won and they came back against their nemesis, the New England Patriots, and 21 points down. It was the most defining moment of Peyton Manning's career up to that point. The guy comes back 21 points down, led by a rookie running back here, Joseph Addai, and this no-name safety that helps out with the run. And they beat their nemesis. They finally get over the hump, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl. James Cook has – this kind of feels like that team. This team is not as good. I'm not guaranteeing you this is that Buffalo team, but, last year's team, the team year before that, Tre'Davious White, you're looking at all these big names here. This team fit, it seemed like their time has passed. Josh Allen's getting paid more money. I'm already getting rid of McDermott here, okay? They cannot run the football. They got rid of Devin Singletary, who's having a good year with Houston Texans, ran up on here. And now over the last 2 games, James White, he is averaging 170 something all-purpose yards. He had over 200 against Dallas alone. Okay. I'm not saying that this is those 2 teams, but if you look at the Bills here and James White, he's a second-year guy, right, Carlos? So you look at that and you say, okay, this team right here, they've got to play at the Chargers, who just fired their coach. Half the team is hurt, next Saturday, the day before Christmas Eve, this Saturday, excuse me. Then they got to play the dreadful New England Patriots at home, and then this could decide the division. Miami shouldn't have lost that game to Tennessee. Now because Miami still got to play Baltimore, and then they got to play Buffalo head up, and they got Dallas this week, a ticked-off Dallas team. So Buffalo can essentially win the division, But this is the team that we're not expecting. I've already wrote Buffalo off, I thought Dallas was going to take them out of the misery this past week. I thought they would, because of the timing, I thought they would beat Kansas City. But you look at this, James Cook, if they continue to ride this James, and that's what I would do. I said, we're going to, listen, there is no Joe Burrow that's had their number, okay? They've already shown they can beat. They've already showed they can beat Patrick Mahomes, okay? They match up really well against Buffalo or Baltimore, although this Baltimore team is really good. This team does not have the best players on paper, but they've had injuries. I think about the 2010 Green Bay Packers, similar, a lot of injuries, rolled off, just kind of and you could see them getting healthy at the right time. This is an odd year. There's not a lot of great teams in the league this year. I mean, the 49ers were fully healthy. That's a big if, though. They're always getting banged up, and they still got a rough ride, the 49ers. So if I'm Buffalo here, you've got and plus I just read M. Rappaport says their defensive tackle, Daquan Jones, who's been on IR, one of their best defenders, opened the 21-day practice window from IR. So they're getting healthy at the right time. They fired their offensive coordinator. Everybody is on the line to win or lose here. I mean, their backs are against the wall, They're way up there in Buffalo. They ain't got nothing to worry about but football, kind of like Green Bay, even though Green Bay lost last week. I'll talk about them tomorrow. So those 2 teams I mentioned, that's the model. Those 2 teams had unsung heroes. That Steeler team had a running back nobody never heard of. I can look up his name now that I'm thinking about it. But that Colt team, Joseph Adai, whoever thought, you lose Adrian James, well, Adai carried him. The Joseph Adai carried that team. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Willie Parker. That's what I was thinking about. Willie Parker, Antoine Randall, Heath Bar Miller. He was a rookie. I didn't think Heath Bar was on that team. So right now, they're not even in the playoffs. They're tied in the hunt. But you got 3 games to go. And they're going to be favored, and all 3 likely the Bills will be. But again, nobody really paid attention to that 05 team of Steelers. You had guys, Hines Ward, Heath Miller, Alan Faneca was a Hall of Famer. I just mentioned him. Troy Polamalu, Ike Taylor, Joey Porter, Larry Foote. That was a really good team, and everybody wrote them off. So if they continue to do this power football, and keep that time of possession, they could win out, and they're going to be hard to deal with in the playoffs. That's a big if, though. That's a big. You got to be playing good at the right time. I've said that about the baseball playoff. Everybody, Braves this. Watch out. Who's playing good in late September and October? July don't count. That's just passing the time, July don't count. Now, some teams in baseball and in football, they go through ebbs and flows, ebbs and flows. And maybe that's what the Eagles are going through. I doubt it. But it's interesting food for thought. Okay. Good scope, bad scope. Where I was right about some things, and I'm always wrong about some things, and I own it. I got that from the Colin Cowherd show, and I own it myself. Okay, now good scope. Go back to the Eagles. Last year, said this before, 32nd ranked schedule, okay? Took the lead by storm, almost dominated from start to finish. Said with the first ranked level of difficulty, they wouldn't make it back and even win the NFC East, which they're right now. If the season ended today, for whatever reason, God forbid, they would be a wild card. They would not be NFC East winners. So they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to get back. They got a lot of problems here. I think I was right about that. And also, same thing with Kansas City. Mahomes' defense keeps giving up too many big plays. I'm still actually. What am I saying here? Okay, I'm just saying this about the Eagles. 3-game losing streak could have been 5 if Buffalo gets one more stop. If Mahomes hits that receiver, they're already moving around the defensive people. A.J. Brown. Problems brewing, Super Bowl repeat, not looking good, okay? Bad scope. Taking Dallas players' word that it was a business-like win over Philadelphia last week. Again, they gave up 200 yards rushing to James Cook and the Buffalo Bills. And, yeah, the defensive tackle was out, but offensively there were no-show as well in Buffalo. They got overwhelmed, and it showed, good scope. Not totally going to give up on Cincinnati. I said I wouldn't. I thought Cincinnati win last week. They were pushed really hard against Minnesota. But listen, you love or hate Cincinnati, all right? But the truth about Cincinnati is they've been to 2 AFC championship games, whether you love them or not. That's not a fluke, okay? Jake Browning, Zach Taylor's done a good job. Now, the injuries are starting to mount up. I know DJ Britter got hurt. I think T. Higgins may got hurt again. Or no, not T. Higgins. Jamar Chase got some kind of sprained AC joint. They may fade, but they played well with Jake Browning, and kudos to them. Big win over the Colts on Saturday. Or no, not the Colts. I'm sorry. Well, they did the other day, but big win over Minnesota Vikings Saturday when the Vikings seemed like they had them down and out. Okay? Bad scope. Thinking of Green Bay going on a big run after their big wins over the Kansas City Chiefs and Detroit Lions. Listen, folks, they're simply just a young team. You can see the ebbs and flows of the Green Bay Packers. Nobody's hardly even paying attention to them. But I was wrong about that. I mean, you cannot lose to you cannot lose to Tampa and the Giants here. But Love got outplayed by Baker Mayfield. It is what it is. Not a big Baker Mayfield fan, but he did. He got beat by Baker Mayfield. Good scope. Be careful against teams with late bye weeks in December. I've said that early on. Week before last, there was 2. Every team coming off a bye week 1. Now, last week, of course, that wasn't the case, but those were very tight games there. Even the Rams had to hang on at the very end there. And Buffalo's still riding it. They come back, they regroup late November, early December, and it's really helped them out here So we'll see how it goes here. Yeah. So the late bye. Remember, the Tampa Bay Bucks had a late bye. They were like, what, 8-5 or something like that. People wrote them off. They lost to the Bears in 2020. And after their bye week, they go on a run. We'll go on and win the whole thing, including a win up in Lambeau Field. So it is what it is. Pickle says Baker Mayfield, perfect quarterback, right? Yeah, I just – and the defense, they're up and down. They're up and down. So they've got to make some adjustments on defense. They may have to let some staff go on defense as far as coaching. Because I don't think the Green Bay is just not playing up to par. I mean, it's like they were feeling themselves a little bit. And I mean, you go out and you beat Detroit like that, and then you beat Kansas, two division leaders, and then you lose to a team again. Giants were off a bye week, and they thought that was a fluke. They took Tampa lightly, and they got beat at home by Baker Mayfield. And I can add that into a bad scope. I thought they were going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I predicted they would be down there with Arizona and be looking to draft another quarterback. Now, if you're a Tampa fan, you hope this is just not fluke. Remember, you're in the worst. They're 7-7. They're not great. You're in the worst division in football, okay, record-wise. NFC South is not even close, folks. The NFC South is a very bad division. Somebody could win that division without a winning record. And what if Baker Mayfield leads you to a division win and you luck up and win a playoff game? Do you roll back with Baker Mayfield, and that coaching staff there when you've won, 8 games, 7, 8 games, 9 games, something like that? I mean, it could be a little fool's gold. If an opportunity's there to get a better quarterback, I probably would. But again, maybe they win 2 or 3. I don't know. I doubt it. So, anyways, okay. Let's go to the Power 5 here, okay? Alrighty then. And you know what? This took me forever. I was and I've been recording some of these Christmas movies, some of my favorites, Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase and Home Alone, even though there's a TV version of Home Alone. It was not bad. Not bad. I was doing some notes here. And it took me the longest this week to put together a Power 5 because there's not that many great teams right now. There's just good teams from week to week with matchups. So this playoff could be full of surprises. Anybody can beat anybody. I mean, yeah, if San Francisco stays healthy a whole game, yeah, they could probably be favored against anybody. I get it. But San Francisco's the type of team, like they played Cleveland, that they're that type of team that could get 2 or 3 injuries in a half, and you're down a starting quarterback, a left tackle, and your best weapon at receiver, a Deebo Samuel, like they were against Cleveland. And a missed kick or something, and before you know it, you're looking up and you've got the L. You've got the major L there. So, and San Francisco may be that team that's kind of like I was talking about with Pittsburgh there, that back 20 years ago, where they've been, and the Colts team, been close. They're battle-tested, hardened, and they're ready to go. So, anyways, let's get back to it here. Like I said, it took me forever to come up with this list today. But I still put Kansas City at number 5. Okay. They come back against Kansas City after losing to Buffalo. Kansas City goes on the road and covers that 9.5-point spread. They will get their left tackle back. He's questionable now. He's not doubtful. Donovan Smith, who's been out. That was one of the reasons why I picked Buffalo to beat them. And listen, hey, Rashee Rice, I've been high on him for the past 6-8 weeks. Pickles, 9 catches, 90 yards and a touchdown for the Kansas City's leading receiver. Now, listen, I'm telling you, I warned you about this at the very beginning of the season, even in the preseason, that Kansas City, they're not going to be able to rely on Travis Kelce throughout the whole season. I predicted that. He's 34, all right, and they don't have a major other threat here. He's too dependent on. He was being too dependent on. I said this is going to be the year where he probably falls apart. Missed opening week, been kind of banged up all year. Teams are doubling him. He can't shed the double team like he used to just last year. All right. You're starting to see that. Now, do you want to say the Taylor Swift thing? I don't know. You can add that in. You can add the Taylor Swift thing in. But either way, but this young guy, this Rashee Rice, now he's a rookie. He would be their unsung hero. 90 yards last 2 games, touchdowns last couple of games here, over 100 against the Raiders a couple of weeks back, starting to develop. What they're essentially doing, they're making basically Mahomes is being forced to work with other players, and this is a good thing. You can't be dependent on one guy, This is a good thing. They're probably going to need to make a trade at some point. Or maybe a Tennessee trades a DeAndre Hopkins to them for a 3rd-round pick and maybe a future pick later. And Tennessee goes out and signs another big free agent guy like a T. Higgins will be available, somebody like that, possibly. But they're going to need another vet here to work with Mahomes. But for this year, I do like Rashee Rice. He's hit. Sky Moore was not. Justin Watson's already hurt. Valdez-Scantling, we've seen his drops already. Juju Smith-Schuster's a Patriot now. Tyreek is down with Miami. But, hey, listen, they still got a really good defense here. They bounce back. Isaiah Pacheco, he's supposed to be possibly back this week when they play again this week here. And plus, after the Denver loss, now they're back in. They got a comfortable 2-game lead in the AFC West. Denver's kind of fallen off a little bit. I'll talk about them tomorrow. But, Andy Reid, you're looking at Andy Reid. You're looking at Patrick Mahomes. You're looking at a really good secondary and defense. Chris Jones, you don't need that many big plays. You just need the big plays at the right time. And they've got to clean up their penalties, get Kadarius Toney lining up on sides, and give him some easier looks here. And I think they're going to be fine. So I still got them at 5. Remember, they did beat Miami by 21. And they're a pass away from beating really, if they're, if the refs miss that call, they probably beat Buffalo. They probably beat and this is when they're struggling. I'm glad they didn't. I'm tired of looking at them, but I got to be honest about they're still a hard mother bleeper to beat, Pickles. So I still got them at 5 here. Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, now you can laugh all you want to, but listen, I pushed Dallas up to. I still got Dallas in the top 5. They've had some injuries. Again, Zach Martin went down. I mentioned their defensive tackle there, their best run defender went down the other day. They seem to bounce back from these type of games. Remember, they blew out the Rams, and Rams are pretty good. Rams are in the playoffs, by the way, because that big win over Washington. They have creeped back into the playoff hunt. If the playoffs started, they blew the Rams out. Okay, and they did beat the Eagles. They're in first place. Okay. They're going to get a home game if it started today. Here, I do think that they will bounce back, depending on who's playing against Miami. Heard something today. They'll have more fans than the Dolphins will. The Cowboys and Steelers are so popular, man. Okay, this one's very controversial. Nobody's going to say this, what I'm about to say. But number 3, judging by the last 2 wins, judging by the next 3 games, they'll likely be favored in all 3, even at Miami. I got the Bills, Pickles. I got the Bills, man. Again, James Cook, 175 all-purpose yards, okay? This team still may be a Super Bowl sleeper. I see them running the table and ending the season at 11-6. You're going to make the playoffs here. You know, you'll make the playoffs here if you go 11-6. Nobody in NFC wants to play this team, including the Ravens. They match up well against the Ravens, fans. The Ravens got another player that got hurt today. I'll talk about them in a minute. But the Bills I got as number 3. Again, I'm looking who's playing well when it's cold outside. This is how the Bengals were playing 2 years ago. This is how the Bengals were playing last year when they got to the AFC Championship game. That's how the Bills are playing. Now, hey, listen, if they go out to L.A. and lay an egg with the L.A. Chargers, that's a Bills problem. That's a Sean McDermott problem. But I got them at number 3. Okay, number 2. Now, this is pretty easy. I mean, Ravens, they go on the road. I predicted the Ravens to win. I said pick them against the spread. We talked about it with Carlos Mad New Yorker Chavez that the Ravens would beat the Jags there. But now, again, like every year, the Ravens have lost another running back here. This Keaton Mitchell. Now, they still got Gus Edwards. But Mitchell was really exploding out of the backfield here. So he's done with an ACL. Still got Gus Edwards here. They, again, lead the league in sacks. Lamar Jackson, listen, he might win the MVP this year. He might win it. Now, they got to play, and I'll talk about this Friday with Carlos. I'll talk about it Thursday about the meaning of this particular game. They got to play the 49ers on Christmas night, I want to say. I was hoping that would have been on Sunday night, Christmas Eve, but I think they play Christmas night. Either way, that's going to be a good game. If Lamar Jackson can play well that game, and they got Miami coming up, and I want to say they got Pittsburgh. Say if they run the table. If they run the table and Lamar plays great there, he's your MVP again. And I totally wrote this guy off for years. So he's right there in the MVP conversation here. It depends on how they finish. Again, listen, they got the 1 seed right now. They got their 1 seed in the AFC. Okay? And, of course, last but not least, listen, the 49ers, they've got 2 guys in MVP talk. Christian McCaffrey has now been coming up in MVP talk. Christian McCaffrey had 39 fantasy points against Arizona Pickles last Sunday night. Of course, Brock Purdy. Listen, I found some more stats here on this guy, and he just continues to kick butt and take names. Most yards, this NFL CBS put this out. Most yards per attempt in a single season over the past 20 years, minimum of 300 attempts. Brock Purdy, 9.9. He's the best. Matt Ryan, 9.3 in 2016. Aaron Rodgers, 9.2 in 2011. Peyton Manning, 9.2 in 2004. All won MVP. I'm going to be here for a while, so you got to get to know me, like 50 Cent said in that song. Here's a caveat to that. All those teams lost the Super Bowl. Now, Matt Ryan should have won in 2016, 28-3. So that, they depending on who they play, not to be, Debbie Downer, but again, 49ers are the best team. They are 5.5-point favorites. They're at home against the Ravens. Okay. I know that Lamar's got this great record. I think he's 18-1 or something against NFC teams. Almost got lost to the Rams. Their Rams had them beat, and of course they came back and beat the Rams. But here's a little backlog on that. This 49er team, a lot of those players played at Baltimore back in 19 when the Ravens were the 1 seed and the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl. That was a 3-point game at Baltimore. At Baltimore. Now, this one's going to be played in Santa Clara in San Francisco. That was in Lamar's second year. Now we're in Lamar. You know, he's 5-6 years into the game. So he's gotten a whole lot better, much better receiving core around him. Now, that being said, their secondary, it's suspect. It's not as good as it used to be, the Ravens. So that's going to be a game to really, I'll have to really break that game down and analyze it. But yeah, I've got the 49ers at 1. And Pickle says maybe Trent Williams should get votes too. I mean, when you start throwing out all these names, then what about Deebo Samuel? He's been on a tear. He's had multiple touchdown games, you know? I mean, they're coming at you from different angles here. They've got Chase Young. They've got Nick Bosa. They've got Terry and Armstead. They've got Javon Hargrove. They've got Fred Warner. I think he had a pick 6 the other day. The middle linebacker. I mean, they got what it takes, you know? They got what it takes. They just got to stay healthy. So you got 49ers, Ravens, Bills. I know that's a controversial. Cowboys, and the Kansas City Chiefs. I know the Miami Dolphins are there. Detroit's there. Dolphins, I just don't know about that. I mean, the Dolphins, you know, they have problems, physical teams. So does the Cowboys. They play each other, okay? The Eagles have a lot of internal problems right now. They have problems with players. I think A.J. Brown's turning into a problem. They have players not buying in to the offensive coordinator. I think it's Brian Johnson. Hashtag Brian Johnson was trending. That's why I didn't put the Eagles in there. They're on a 3-game losing streak. You cannot lose. You cannot lose to Seattle. You can't lose to Drew Lock. I don't care if it is played in Seattle. You know? Not with that line. They should have lined up and did a 7-8 minute drive for touchdown, 7-8 minute drive for touchdown, 7-8 minute drive for touchdown, and Locke would have been lucky to get a first down if I was coaching that team. You know? I mean, if you have the right kind of coach like a Belichick, don't let Belichick – if you had a Belichick say, okay, you coach this team for a night, and he would have took that Eagles team and they would have mopped the floor with Seattle. In Seattle. They should have, you know? So there's some internal problems. I'm just trying to explain to y'all folks why I did not put the Eagles, who are 10-4, you know, and still have a chance at the 1 seed. That's why I didn't put them in the top 5. I just don't trust the Eagles right now. Too many internal problems there, folks. Anyways, be back tomorrow. I know there's a lot more storylines here. I know that there's a story about Rashard Mendenhall, some smart comment former Steeler made. I'll talk about that tomorrow here. Talk about the Denver and Detroit. I'll talk about that tomorrow as well. What else did I say? I might go a little bit more on the Baker Mayfield thing. Okay. I'll talk about the Bears, you know. And Kevin Stefanski. Nobody's talking about Kevin Stefanski for Cleveland. How many quarterbacks have they had now? 3, 4? 4 quarterbacks in Cleveland. And if the season ended today, Cleveland will be in the playoffs. You know, Stefanski, how many rabbits can you pull out of your hat, man? You know? So this is stuff, the Jets situation, you know? Get blown out again. I'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. And listen, you know, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but listen, I think I was going to put Robert Salah in there, but it's looking more and more like he might be on the hot seat here in the next few weeks with the Jets. So they need to show some fight, man. They needed to show some fight here. So if you like the show, share the show. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll get into all that stuff, okay? Same time, same place here on Sports Scope. Good crowd tonight. Thank you, everybody.